The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar sponsored by the Association of Schools and Programs of Public Health, or ASPPH. I am Monica Statler, Director of Graduate Training Programs here at ASPPH. The purpose of today's webinar is to share information about fellowship and internship opportunities sponsored by ASPPH for students and alumni of our member CEPH accredited schools and programs of public health. During today's webinar, there we go. During today's webinar, we'll share information about fellowship opportunities at 3 federal agencies, the CDC, EPA, and NHTSA, and at an independent private foundation, the Beaumont Foundation. We will also share information about the internship program offered at ASPPH headquarters here in Washington, D.C. during the summer. Then, we plan to provide an overview to the application process. We have allocated time at the end of the program for questions and answers. In addition, we're joined today by 2 of our fellows who we've asked to share their own personal experiences in their fellowship positions. We'll be joined today by Carrie Wisner, a fellow assigned to the CDC, NIOSH up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and a graduate of the Tulane School of Public Health, and Deandra Morris, a fellow assigned to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or NHTSA, and a graduate of Emory School of Public Health. Also presenting today will be my colleague Erin Williams, Program Manager of ASPPH Fellowship Programs. But before we start, a few housekeeping details. If at any time during the webinar you can type your question into the questions box, which you can find on the toolbar at the right side of your computer screen, as shown here. We'll address all questions during the question and answer session after the presentation. If you have not already done so, please be sure to put your phones on mute to eliminate any background noises. Now to begin. The Association of Schools and Programs of Public Health, known as ASPPH, is the voice of accredited public health education. We represent schools and programs accredited by the Council on Education for Public Health, or as commonly referenced, CEPH. ASPPH is pleased to partner with several agencies, including the EPA, the U.S. Department of Transportation, National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or NHTSA, and the CDC, as well as the philanthropic organization, the Beaumont Foundation, to offer public health training opportunities for students and recent graduates of our member schools and programs. Now, you may ask yourself what distinguishes the ASPPH training programs from all other fellowships out there. First and foremost, with over 30 years of training program experience, ASPPH provides highly respected and recognized mentor training programs specifically aimed at fostering the growth of early career public health professionals. We have time-tested relationships with federal agencies that are involved in public health, such as CDC, EPA, and NHTSA. The performance of our fellows speaks for itself, as a significant number of our program participants go on to become full-time employees or contractors at their host agencies. In addition, as an ASPPH fellow or intern, you become part of a network of over 2,200 ASPPH fellowship and internship alumni who are public health leaders in private, nonprofit, academic, and government organizations. Wherever you are in your career, you can always contact ASPPH and ASPPH fellow and intern alumni for networking, advice, and support. ASPPH offers 2 types of graduate training programs, internships and fellowships. Internships are short-term training assignments, usually 10 to 12 weeks long, and are open to students currently enrolled in an ASPPH member CEPH accredited school or program of public health. Fellowships are long-term training assignments, typically 1 to 2 years, and in some circumstances 3 years. Fellowships are open to recent graduates, defined as students who will have received a master's or doctorate degree by the start of the fellowship, or students who have graduated within the previous 5 years of the start date of the fellowship. During this presentation, we'll focus on fellowship opportunities that are scheduled to begin in summer and early fall of 2019 and internship positions for summer 2019. For the internship program, applicants must be enrolled in an ASPPH member CEPH accredited graduate school or program of public health and currently seeking a master's or doctoral degree. To be eligible for ASPPH fellowship programs, applicants must have received a master's or doctorate degree from an ASPPH CEPH accredited school or program of public health. The graduate degree must have been earned prior to the beginning of the fellowship and no earlier than the previous 5 years. We're often asked if you must have an MPH degree specifically, or if it's okay to have an MSPH or MHS. The answer depends on where you got your degree. If you attended an ASPPH member School of Public Health, then any graduate degree received through the School of Public Health is acceptable. If you attended an ASPPH member Program of Public Health, only those degrees which are accredited by CEPH are eligible, and this varies by program. The same principle applies to doctoral degrees. They must be from the ASPPH member CEPH accredited school or program of public health. And to reiterate, ASPPH Fellowships and Internships are for students and graduates of ASPPH member institutions only. If your public health degree did not come from an ASPPH member institution, then you are not eligible for these programs. You may visit the ASPPH website to determine if your school or program is a member of ASPPH. All applicants for ASPPH fellowships and internships must also be U.S. citizens or hold visas permitting permanent residence in the U.S., i.e. have a green card, to be eligible for the program. For international students who are on today's webcast, we suggest you check with your school's Career Services Office, as well as the ASPPH website, www.publichealthjobs.org, to find opportunities for which you might be eligible. You may also research opportunities available directly through the federal agency in which you are interested. Internship assignments are 10 to 12 weeks, typically scheduled June through August. Our interns receive a competitive training stipend. Each intern is required to establish goals and objectives for their assignment. These goals and objectives are established in collaboration with the ASPPH mentor and possibly with a faculty advisor. At the end of the assignment, each intern is required to submit a final summary report of their internship project work. Oftentimes, ASPPH internship will serve to meet a practicum or internship requirement and also can serve as the basis for a thesis or other academic paper. All internship opportunities will be based at ASPPH headquarters in Washington, D.C. Fellowship assignments are 12-month placements. Some ASPPH programs offer extensions for 2 and possibly 3 years, based on the availability of funding at the host agency and the satisfactory progress of the fellow. Fellows receive a competitive training stipend, an allowance for health insurance premiums, and in some cases, a travel and training allowance. The stipends and allowances vary by program and fellowship location. All fellows are required to establish goals and objectives that they will accomplish during their placement period. These goals and objectives are established in collaboration with host agency mentors and are reported to ASPPH at the beginning of the fellowship. Fellows will then report to ASPPH and their mentors on their progress in accomplishing their plan throughout the assignment period. At the end of the assignments, each fellow is required to submit a final report and assessment. Specific fellowship opportunities will be discussed in just a moment, but for now, the best person to describe a program is somebody who is in it. As such, we are pleased that Carrie Wisner can be with us today. Carrie is an ASPPH CDC Public Health Fellow based at the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, or NIOSH, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Carrie is currently in the process of closing her third year of the fellowship. Carrie?
Hi, thanks for that great introduction. My name is Carrie, and my MPH is in epidemiology. And so my ASPPH/CDC fellowship was with a division of CDC that focuses on the health of the U.S. workforce. So that's what NIOSH's main goal is. So my branch focused specifically on research related to safety equipment, such as respirators, gloves, and gowns. So during my fellowship, I worked on several high-profile projects. Notably, I got to help in the response to the Ebola epidemic. I also worked on national emergency pandemic planning and shortages of safety equipment for healthcare workers. And I think that this fellowship is really about how much effort you put into it, and there's a lot of room to focus on your specific interests and work with your mentor to develop a project. There's also a lot of opportunity for professional growth through the ASPPH workshops and events, so making sure you take advantage of that and working with your mentor to make sure that you're getting those professional growths and you're meeting your project goals. So during my fellowship, I published peer-reviewed manuscripts describing NIOSH datasets. For these manuscripts, I was the lead analyst and the lead author, and this involved developing a research question with my mentor, coding my own statistics, writing up the results, navigating the CDC clearance process, and then working with the journal and reviewers to get those manuscripts published. I also got to do some field work where we were sampling aged safety equipment from health department storage facilities, and then we brought them back to the lab and did all the tests to determine if that product had changed. So I got to work with health departments across the country and the lab technicians within NIOSH, and this really helped increase my understanding of research project management. So I got to work with getting funding, doing proposals, running the project, doing contracts where we needed to. So it really helped expand my knowledge of CDC procedures as well as overall research start to finish. Throughout my fellowship, I worked with statisticians, chemists, medical doctors, industrial hygienists, and senior scientists, both within NIOSH and at CDC, as well as with other federal agencies. My work, I was able to use my public health and epidemiology background to influence these projects. Specifically, I was able to add kind of a public health flair to the projects to make sure that there was actionable recommendations for policymakers at the end of the paper. So, in addition to the research, that I helped build talking points that we could go to policymakers to help influence continued change. So overall, I would say that my fellowship significantly built up my resume with publications and presentations. I did a lot of professional growth stuff, doing posters and networking and getting public health accreditation. I actually did my CPH accreditation, and my fellowship counts towards reaccreditation, so that was very helpful. And it also really helped extend my network of public health contacts, including those in healthcare and health departments across the country. So now I have a really great network, both with my ASPPH group, my NIOSH colleagues that I worked with, as well as the people that we did projects with, which was all across healthcare and health departments in many of the 50 states. So I had a great fellowship experience.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Carrie. We really appreciate you taking the time to share your own experience as an ASPPH Fellow. Now to discuss each of the ASPPH programs that have training opportunities available in 2019. We're very excited to announce 4 opportunities this year: the ASPPH CDC Public Health Fellowship Program, the ASPPH NHTSA Public Health Fellowship Program, and the ASPPH Public Health Philanthropy Fellowship, and the ASPPH EPA Environmental Health Fellowship Program. The application for the ASPPH CDC Public Health Fellowship Program is currently open, and the deadline is January 31st. The application for the ASPPH Public Health Philanthropy Fellowship programs opens this Friday, December 14th, and the deadline is February 8th. The application for the ASPPH NHTSA Public Health Fellowship program opens next Friday, December 21st, and the deadline will be February 15th. And the application for the ASPPH EPA Environmental Health Fellowship program will open right after the New Year on January 4th, and the deadline will be February 20th. Please note that these deadlines apply to all fellowship materials, so letters of recommendation and faculty advisor verification are also due on these dates. We'll discuss these more in a few minutes. The goal of the ASPPH CDC Public Health Fellowship Program is to identify new approaches and opportunities for field experience in which recent graduates and early career professionals with graduate degrees can practice applying skills and knowledge learned in the classroom and to the field. The program provides fellows the opportunity to train under nationally recognized experts who work to protect human health at the national and international level. Fellowship locations will be based in Atlanta, Georgia. Fellowships are expected to start in July 2019. The ASPPH Public Health Philanthropy Fellowship Program provides an opportunity for early career public health professionals to develop skills in practice-based research, policy, and grant-making within an organization dedicated to philanthropy with a focus on public health. The fellowship will be based at the de Beaumont Foundation's headquarters in Bethesda, Maryland, and is expected to start in July 2019. The ASPPH NHTSA Public Health Fellowship Program provides opportunities for early career professionals to apply their public health knowledge on projects that address the preventable public health problems associated with motor vehicle injuries, death, and disabilities, and ultimately improve traffic safety. Fellows have the opportunity to work with experienced professionals in NHTSA to learn all components of comprehensive approach to traffic safety, develop a thorough understanding of the shared missions between public health, traffic safety, and injury prevention, and experience working within a federal agency on projects affecting the public health of the entire nation. Fellowships will be located in Washington, D.C., and are expected to start in September of 2019. The goal of the ASPPH EPA Environmental Health Fellowship Program is to provide professional training and opportunities for early career public health professionals to be involved with EPA on current and emerging environmental public health threats. The program provides fellows the opportunity to train under nationally recognized experts who work to protect human health and the environment at a national and international level. The program focuses on climate change, sustainable communities, drinking water and public health, children's environmental health, air quality, and environmental justice. Fellowship locations are primarily in Washington, D.C., but also Research Triangle Park, North Carolina. There are occasional opportunities open at EPA regional offices. Fellowships are expected to start in October of 2019. The application for the ASPPH Summer Internship Program will open this week on Friday, December 14th. The deadline will be Friday, January 25th. ASPPH summer internships are designed to provide a learning experience in public health for current graduate students. ASPPH interns have contributed to education, communication, and data analysis projects here at ASPPH. Information regarding ASPPH fellowships and internships is available through your Career Services and/or Student Liaison Office at your school or program of public health. In addition, you may also easily access information online, including all application deadlines and detailed application instructions. Just go to the main page of the ASPPH website and click on the link for Study at the top of the page and then click Fellowships and Internships. You can go directly to the Fellowships and Internships Applications portal where you can create an account and submit an application. A great way to stay up to date about training opportunities is to subscribe to the ASPPH Friday Letter. We announce all our fellowship and internship openings through the Friday Letter and advertise partner opportunities as well. Now, I'll hand the presentation over to my colleague, Erin Williams, Fellowship Program Manager, to talk about the application process. Erin?
Thank you, Monica. I will be going over what Monica was just explaining. So on your screen now, you're going to see the ASPPH online application portal. And this is kind of the home page where you're going to start. If you already have an account, if you've already logged in or applied to one of our training programs before, you can use that same credential. If not, you can just create a new account right here on the sign up page. And I'm going to be going over on how to apply for the fellowship program in the screenshots, but you will see that it's essentially the same process for both the fellowships and the internships. So to begin, there are going to be 5 main components of the application packages. Your CV or resume, which is going to be specific to the program being applied to. And we can't really stress that enough, that everything that you do, you want to make very specific to the program that you're applying for the position you're applying for. Because if you're applying for various positions and you use the same credentials, the same essays, you're not going to score very well. And we just want you to do the best and reflect yourself the best that you can. So your first step would be your CV or resume, which is specific to the program you're applying to. You'll also need 2 recommendation letters. Again, make sure that that's going to be specific to the program being applied to. You're going to want to make, if you're applying for an EPA position or a CDC position, you want to make sure it's specific to that program. You're also going to need your graduate transcript from your school or program. And for this application, you can go ahead and submit an unofficial or official transcript, but if you're selected for a position, you're going to have to provide your official transcript before you can begin the fellowship. And then we're going to need a couple of essays, no more than 1,500 words, which are going to be specific to the position which you're applying, again. So if you apply to only one position, you're only going to need to submit 1 essay. But if you're going to apply for 3 positions or different programs, you're going to need to submit essays for each of those positions. And then we're going to need your faculty advisor information. And this is only for applicants who have not yet graduated or whose transcript doesn't show the graduation date yet. So your advisor will need to verify your graduation date for us. And then finally, if you're not a U.S. citizen but do have a permanent residency, you're going to be asked to indicate that in the application. But if you won't be required to provide proof of that residency unless you're offered a position. So both green card holders and U.S. citizens will be required to provide proof of citizenship or residency status, again, if you're offered that position. And then before we show you how to use the ASPPH application portal, I am pleased to welcome a wonderful, very talented, very smart fellow, Deandra Morris. Deandra is a first-year fellow with the ASPPH NHTSA Public Health Fellowship Program. But in addition to that, she also recently completed 2 years as an ASPPH EPA Environmental Health Fellow. So she is ultimately and uniquely qualified to share tips and tricks and information on how to submit a strong application, having successfully completed 2 successful applications herself. So Deandra, share your wealth of knowledge.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Erin, for that kind introduction. And also, sorry if you guys hear any background noises. I'm currently in the office. But I'm going to pick up on some of the main topics that Erin mentioned in regard to the application components and give some tips regarding that. So one of the first aspects of the application is getting the faculty advisor information. So I wanted to point out that I know from my experience at Rollins School of Public Health, we didn't technically have an official document for that initially. So I would suggest that you, one, request that early from your academic advisor or counselor and make sure that they can either create something for you or determine what would be the best document to use to verify your graduation date. I know that I was frantic and other students were frantic about getting that document as well. In regard to your 2 letters of recommendation, I would state one, make sure that you request your letter of recommendation as soon as you can, and also make sure that you give your recommender enough time to write the letters. Usually, I like to give them at least 2 weeks or more so that they have time to write the letter. And I was speaking to other fellows who are currently in the program, and they also like giving them a letter summarizing the program just to make sure they're informed about what you are applying to, what your interests are in relation to the program, and how you feel like you will benefit from it. So it gives them more of an idea of what to talk about and to discuss in your letter. In addition to that, one other suggestion that may already be in the application itself is that to try to have a letter that one reflects both your professional and your academic experiences and skill sets. So this just gives a more holistic and well-rounded understanding of what you do and what you can bring to the table as a fellow, and also how you would benefit from the program. In regard to your graduate transcripts, so transcripts are always a tricky thing, and I also know that it varies on how you are able to retrieve your transcripts from school to school. I know with my undergraduate, they allow for electronic transcripts to be ordered online. So I would say, one, since you technically only need an unofficial transcript when you're doing the initial part of the application, if that is allowed to be accepted, that may be one route that you want to take in regard to the time sensitivity around the application process. In addition to that, I would also say that if they can't be submitted or retrieved electronically, make sure that you make those requests as soon as possible. Sometimes it can take a while for them to get mailed to you, and other times the school requires that they mail the transcript directly to whatever program you're applying to themselves. So consider that as well. And one other point in regard to the letters of recommendations, for the fellowships that are coming up with the deadlines very soon, I believe it was CDC, make sure that you request those letters as soon as possible, just given the fact that you do want to consider the holiday schedule that your recommenders may be having as well, and then also your own holiday schedule. In regard to the CV and resume, and also your brief essays, as Erin mentioned, make sure that you tailor those essays to the specific program that you're applying to and our position. But in addition to that, I would state that to make sure that you're looking at what skill sets you have and highlight those both in your CV or resume, but also in those essays as well, and show how they relate to whatever position you're applying to or how they can be beneficial to that position. And lastly, I have just some general tips that I wanted to provide as well. You can apply for multiple fellowship positions or fellowships, and you don't necessarily have to have a specific skill set or background in relation to doing so. I would say that for myself, my background is in behavioral sciences and health education. However, as I mentioned, I just recently completed the ASPPH EPA Fellowship, Environmental Health Fellowship, and now I'm over at NHTSA doing the ASPPH NHTSA Public Health Fellowship. In regards to EPA, I didn't specifically have a background in environmental health, but the position that I applied for related to my background and interest in behavioral sciences, social sciences, and social justice. And this all related to the environmental justice effort and focus of that program. In regard to NHTSA, I also don't have a strong background or a sole background in traffic safety. My understanding of traffic safety or just transportation in general was focused on transportation access from a social justice and health perspective. So thinking about how I can influence individuals' health or health outcomes or limit those things. In addition to that, I'm in the OCCI office, so I'm working on communications, and that's something that I wanted to learn more about, specifically in relation to my background in health education. And one last thing for you guys, with the application process, that would vary from fellowship to fellowship, but I will say that as an EPA, when I was applying for the EPA fellowship, I did do an in-person interview with ASPPH, but that was not the case for NHTSA. And then once that I completed that process, I then advanced to do an interview with each of the prospective agencies. And with the EPA fellowship, that was a phone interview. But with NHTSA, that ended up being an in-person interview, but other current NHTSA fellows said that they did that interview by phone as well. And we all agreed that for the most part, we heard back from ASPPH about your selection process or whether or not you were selected for the fellowship around April and May. So those are things to consider as well. So just giving yourself enough time to go through that entire application process. Those are the main tips that I have. But if you have any other questions, please feel free to let me know at the end of the webinar.
Great. Thank you, Deandra. I think hearing from somebody who's actually been through it and done it means so much more than listening to somebody talk about it that hasn't actually been there. So thank you for that. So now I am going to walk through the actual portal itself. And we're looking at the main page once you log in. And again, if you already have an account, you can log in with those credentials, or you can create a new account. And then you can also access the online application portal from the main ASPP website. Monica had mentioned that before. If you go to the ASPPH.org, you'll see study, and if you click on study, you'll see fellowships and internships, and then you will see the fellowships and internships link. And then once you've logged in, either with current credentials or by creating a new account, you'll come to this homepage for the ASPPH application portal. And this page is going to show any open applications at the top, including the application deadline and a link to view the full program announcement. And the program announcement is probably going to be the most important resource that you can have when applying to the fellowship or internship, because it's going to include very detailed information about the fellowship program itself, all of the open positions, the eligibility, the review resources, procedures, criteria, timelines, how to apply, all that good stuff. So we really strongly recommend that you review the entire program announcement before you jump into the application. It's really going to give you a much better perspective. And then this homepage is also going to include some quick information and links to additional resources, including a My Status section, which you can see on this page. And once you've submitted your application, you're going to be able to track the progress of your application via this page. And you can also find a user's manual with some step-by-step instructions on how to submit an application at the bottom of the page in the resources section. And here you're going to see the 5 steps to complete and submit your application, which we talked about before. Step 1 is going to be the My Profile page, where you're going to enter your personal and contact information. And then please be sure to use a permanent email address for your application, as this is going to be the email that ASPPH will use to contact you about your application through the entire process. So if you're using a school email or something that you're not going to have access to after you graduate, that would not be the most wise decision. So make sure it's a permanent email address that you have access to. And then step 2 is going to be your education. And this is where you're going to enter in your degree information and upload your resume and transcript. Note that in the application system, you can upload your unofficial transcript for the purpose of the application. But as I stated before, if you're offered and accept a fellowship position, you will be required to provide the official graduate transcript. And in addition, when you enter in your graduation date, if it has not yet happened, you'll be directed to enter in your faculty advisor information. And then when you submit your application, the system will go ahead and automatically generate an email to the faculty advisor asking them to verify the expected or anticipated graduation date. But please be sure to talk to your faculty advisor before the application deadline so that they are aware and prepared to respond to you. Because that's usually the lag. If we generate an email and then we don't hear back, we can't process your application. And then please note, in the email to your faculty advisor will not be sent out until you submit your application for the first time. So it is not a good idea to submit the application for the first time on the actual due date, because if you do, the auto-generated emails will not go through. If you go ahead and submit your final application on the due date, you should enter your faculty's advisor's information before then, submit the application in order to prompt the emails to your recommenders to be sent, and then click the pencil icon to continue working on the application. So you submit it with just your faculty advisor's information and letters of recommendation, request, submit it, and then you can edit it and go back in and add all your other good stuff. And then please remember to resubmit by the deadline or it will not go through. And then step 3 is my application, and this is where you're going to select the positions you're going to apply to and upload your essays and make sure that those are specific to the position, and then as well as entering in the information for your references. So you're going to see a list of open positions for the program you're applying to on this page, and if you're not sure which positions you want to apply to, there's going to be that link to that program announcement that we talked about. So that was the very most important information that you can review prior to applying. You will see the link at the top of the page, and you can reference that about the details of each and every position. And then you will apply to the position you're interested in by uploading your essay for that position, and you can apply for up to 3 positions under each fellowship program. So the system will not let you upload more than 3 essays. And then the reference section at the bottom of the page is where you're going to enter in the contact information for those 2 people who have agreed to write your letters of recommendation. And there isn't any restriction on who you may request to be a reference, but these should be people who can speak to your experience and your qualifications for the program you're applying to. And when you submit your application, the system is going to do that auto-generated email to each of them asking them to submit the letter of recommendation. And that's why you don't want to wait until that last day to submit. And as with the faculty advisor, you should be sure to speak with your references well before the application deadline so that they can be prepared to respond. And once again, not a good idea to submit your application for the first time on the due date. If you plan on submitting your final application on the due date, you go ahead, like we said before, enter your recommender's information before then, submit the application in order to prompt those emails to go through, and then click the edit icon to continue working on the application. And you remember to resubmit by the deadline. Excuse me, I have a cold. Also, excuse me, please note that the system will not, excuse me, Monica, can you take over for a minute?
Yep, I got it, Erin. So what Erin was going to say is the system will not send reminders to your references or faculty advisors. This is very important to remember. So you're going to need to know that it's your responsibility, it's the applicant's responsibility to ensure that all required elements are submitted by the deadline. So you might want to send your references your own personal note reminding them about the deadline if they haven't already submitted. Okay. So in step 4 of the application, this is where you're going to review your entire application. If you need to make any changes, that's the point you're going to do it. Click on the pencil icon next to the section you want to revise, and it'll then take you back to that section to make any changes. Step 5, submission. The final step is to submit your application. You want to check the box to electronically sign your application and then hit the submit button. When your application is successfully submitted, you'll then receive a confirmation email. The system is also going to automatically generate the emails to your references and faculty advisors, as noted previously by Erin. So remember that just saving the application with that information will not generate these emails. So it goes back, we can't emphasize enough that in order to make sure that your references get the auto-generated emails in time, you're going to want to pre-submit, so go through the process of submitting, but then go back and reopen your application through the use of the edit button. Finish your application and then resubmit in time for the application deadline. And also remember, they don't get reminders, so you're going to want to make sure you send the reminders to them with a personal note. Once you've submitted your application, you may rescind it at any time to make changes from your homepage by clicking on the pencil icon. So again, we keep reiterating this, but that's because it's very important for you to know that as long as you resubmit by the application deadline, your application will be reviewed. And again, this is a great option if you want your references and faculty advisor to get the email in plenty of time while you're still working on perfecting your essays, resume, etc. ASPPH will not accept incomplete applications. This includes missing information and submissions from your references or faculty advisor. The application deadline is also the deadline for them to submit their documents. Once the deadline is passed, ASPPH will review all applications for completeness and eligibility. We'll update your status in the system when your application has been verified and moved along to the review stage. You may review your application status at any time when you're logged into the system. The system will also automatically send you an email update with any change in status. So what comes next? Once the deadline is passed, ASPPH will review all applications for completeness and eligibility. We'll update your status in the system when your application has been verified and moved along to the review stage. You may view your application status at any time you're logged into the system, and the system will also automatically send you an email update with change of status. So to talk about the review process, ASPPH ensures that all eligible completed applications submitted by the deadline will be reviewed in an open and fair process. Each application is reviewed by 2 faculty or staff members from ASPPH member institutions, but not from the same institution as the applicant. Applications are scored according to criteria noted in the program announcement, and the top applicants will progress to the next phase, the technical review. During this time, applicants may be contacted for interviews directly from the agency. Moving on to the technical review phase doesn't guarantee that an applicant will receive an interview, only that the application has been sent to the placement agency for review. It is possible that all applicants in the technical review phase it is possible that not all applicants in the technical review phase will receive interviews. And as Deandra mentioned earlier, for the ASPPH EPA Fellowship Program, there is an additional review step, which is a formal panel interview via Skype or other web-based system. The interviews will be held in early April or May. All applicants who advance to this stage are required to participate in the panel interview in order to be considered for final placement. Now, in the past, we've done this interview in person. For this 1 year, we're going to do it via Skype. However, moving forward in coming years, we will most likely revert back to in-person interviews. Deandra also mentioned that she did an in-person interview for the NHTSA Fellowship. The only reason that happened was because she was already here in Washington. She already lived here. So she was able to do the interview in person. However, that is not, that's not standard protocol for that program. Now, individuals who are selected for a position will be contacted directly by ASPPH via phone and email. We will reach out to you to extend the formal offers via phone. We'll hopefully get in touch with you. If not, we'll leave you a message and follow up with an email. Those applicants who are not selected will be notified by ASPPH by email only. The timeline for each program will vary. Please refer to our website and to the specific program announcement to review important dates for the program in which you're interested. Okay, so that ends the formal presentations. We will now take questions if you'd like. As mentioned previously, you can type your question into the chat or question box in the right corner of the screen. To open the box, press the 2 arrows. I'll direct your question to one of today's speakers as appropriate, And we have just a few minutes, about 15 minutes remaining in today's program. And we're happy to take any questions you might have. So as of now, let's see. We have, are references required to write letters of recommendation for each program position you apply to? The question is, the answer is, ideally, yes. So as both Deandra and Erin spoke about earlier, it's important to try to tailor your letters of recommendation as much as possible. Your essays, you'll be required to submit an essay for each individual position. For letters of recommendation, we do recommend that they do it by program. So for example, if you want to apply to the ASPPH CDC program as well as the ASPPH EPA Fellowship program, for example, then we really, and we do realize this takes up more of their time, but we would recommend that they write separate letters specific to the program. If they don't have the time to do that, we completely understand. Just make sure they don't mention the program in the letter. For example, you don't want a reviewer at EPA reading a letter of recommendation that specifies your interest in the ASPPH CDC Public Health Fellowship program. So just to be really careful about that. So whenever possible, letters should be tailored to the specific program. If it's not possible, just make sure they don't call out the exact program so that a reviewer from whichever agency is reading the letter doesn't wonder why it's a letter written for another program, if that makes sense. Okay, so another question is, will we be able to obtain these slides? Yes, if you want to email, let me move here. So the email address, trainingprograms@asppph.org. If you'd like a copy of the slides, I'll be happy to send them to you. If you want to shoot me an email to trainingprograms@asppph.org, and I'm happy to share the slides with you. And also, I believe this webinar is being recorded, so we will also have the webinar available too. Especially, I do encourage you to, if you have a relationship with your career services office and you want to tell them about this presentation, if they weren't able to participate, I'm happy to send them copies of the slides and or a link to this recorded presentation so that they can share it with other students. Okay, so the next question is, for different positions within the same fellowship program, will recommenders have a clear option to send separate letters even though it's the same program? Okay, so admittedly, it's a little confusing when we use the words program versus position. So within a program, so within, say, the umbrella of the ASPPH CDC Public Health Fellowship Program versus the ASPPH NHTSA Public Health Fellowship Program versus the ASPPH Public Health Philanthropy Fellowship Program, etc. You have each of those umbrellas. Underneath each of those, you can apply to up to 3 advertised positions. You are not required to submit a different letter for each position, but rather we encourage you to have letters focus on the program, so the umbrella. So if they have time, ask your recommenders to write a letter specifically to the ASPPH CDC Public Health Fellowship Program, regardless of which positions under that program you're applying to. And then if you're applying to positions under the EPA Fellowship, then they should be letters referencing the EPA Fellowship Program, not specific to the positions, but the program, if that makes sense. Now, with your essays, with your individual essays, the system requires you to submit an individual essay for each position under the program. So if you're applying to the EPA Fellowship and you're applying to 3 different positions under that program, then you'll be required to submit 3 different essays. And your essay, you shouldn't just copy and paste the same essay for each position. You're going to want to write an essay specific to each position. So you will personally write 3 different essays for those different positions under that one program, but your recommenders will only write 1 letter each for that program. Now, if you decide to apply to a different program in addition to that, say CDC, then again, they will write a letter for CDC, and then under that program, if you apply to 1, 2, 3 positions under that program, you will write and submit essays accordingly. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay. So another question, is there a word limit or set of instructions for the letter of recommendation? That question, the answer is no. Most letters of recommendation do not exceed 2 pages. Most are only 1, 1.5. So I would warn against anything longer than 2 pages, because you need to remember that when folks are reviewing these applications, they're looking at several applications, and if you give them anything too lengthy, they might not take the time to read it thoroughly. So I would simply provide your recommenders with guidance that it should not exceed 2 pages. Okay. And let's see. And I also have a note here that the slides are available as a PDF for download in the handout sections and will be available on the archived webinar event page. So following this webinar, you're going to receive a follow-up email with an evaluation and such, and that email will have information on how to access the slides, as well as how to access the archived webinar event page. So there's some additional information regarding the availability of the slides. Okay. So I think that's all the questions that we have for today. Again, if any questions come up, you're more than welcome to reach out to Erin and me through the training programs at ASPPH.org website. And we appreciate your time on this webinar today. We'd like to thank all of our speakers for their participation and insights. And that concludes today's webinar. So thanks so much. Have a great day and happy holidays, everyone. Bye-bye.